Hi everybody, my name is Kristana and I am the owner and creator of Bella Renovare by Kristana, and welcome to Home Talk. Today we are going to be making over my dining room table. So this thing, I made it over a few years ago. I've got a 3 and a 7-year-old and they have really loved it. And what I mean by that is coloring and painting and food and all that good stuff on top of it. So now that they're a little bit older, we're gonna redo it and I'm gonna show you exactly how. It's super easy, so stay tuned because we are going to get this thing rocking. Okay, so I have brought my table outside. This is the best place, I think, for me to work on it because it is well ventilated. I don't have a great workspace, so we're going to work on it out here. But as you can see, so it's oak, but if you can see, you see all the paint and stuff. We have somewhere else that we eat, and this table has become almost like a craft table for my kids. So we are going to work on the top of this first. I'm going to sand it down with my orbital sander. I do use a Surf Prep orbital sander, but you can use anything that you have available. So you can get one at your local hardware store or on Amazon or anything like that. So I'm going to use an orbital sander and I'm going to sand the top of this first. Before we get started, I want to make sure that I let you guys know that you want to make sure you're sanding in a well-ventilated area, as well as wearing the proper protective mask. Also, I'm going to start with an 80 grit. So I'm going to start with an 80 grit paper and I'm going to work my way up. So you want to make sure you start with lower and work your way up to avoid swirl marks and just to get the best finish you can. I am going to unlatch the table and pull it apart where the leaves would be so that I can get in there. And I'm also going to sand with the grain. So I'm going to sand this way. Okay, so I have my first layer of sanding done with the 80 grit. And what I've done is I've taken the sandpaper off of my orbital sander. I'm going to fold it in half, and because there is a lip, you can see that there's a lip right here on the table. And so I'm going to take my sandpaper that I just used, and I'm not going to get rid of it right away. I'm going to actually use this to hand sand around the edges. So I'm going to fold it in half so that it's easy and it gets right up into this crack. And then I'm going to sand. And you see how it comes off. So I'm going to hand sand around the entire edge. We're going to move on to the 120 grit, and I'm going to do the same exact thing that I just did with the 80 grit, but I'm going to go over it with the 120. Okay, so I have brought this piece inside. You do not want to stain or paint directly in the sunlight. So I brought the table inside. I'm going to put some fans in here so that way I have some good ventilation. But again, you want to make sure that you're wearing a mask when you're using this, when you're staining anything. Also, I've got gloves. Okay, so the first step is I'm just going to open this. You can use a flathead screwdriver. This is just a drill bit that I pulled up. And you're going to open it. Now, it's not uncommon for stains to separate, and that is why you want to make sure that you are mixing them really well. Get your applicator pad out, and I'm going to go with the grain. So I'm going to put it on here and I'm going to go with the grain. I want a lot of the stain to get in deep into this grain so that way it has a pickling effect. So I'm going to go ahead and just dip it in here and just apply it just like this. And you can wipe it back. So if you want it to be this light, bright, whatever the good word is, you can leave it. Or if you want to just have more of a whitewash effect, you can pull it back a little bit. And that will take some of the stain off, and that way you can still see a little bit of the wood grain underneath, but then it's got a pickling effect. So this is what I'm going to do on the entire piece. Okay, so here we are with just one coat of the pickling stain. You're going to want to wait a few hours in between to allow it to fully dry before you put another coat on. If you're happy with one coat, then stay with it. If you aren't and you want to put more, then wait a few hours and then apply it the same way that we just applied it. Okay, so I have put 2 coats of the No Pain Gel Stain in Picklin' White. This stain is oil-based. You absolutely can use a water-based sealer over an oil-based stain, but you have to let it thoroughly dry. And that's probably 48 to 72 hours, depending on the climate of where you live. Okay, so the top of this table is thoroughly dried after the 2 coats. And so now I'm going to seal it with Gator Hide by Dixie Belle. This is really great for tabletops, for cabinets, for high traffic areas. It is water-based, so that is why I had to wait in order to put it over the sealer. So what you're gonna need for this is you're going to need your Dixie Belle's Gator Hide. Okay, so the first part of this is you wanna make sure that you are stirring your Gator Hide really well, or whatever top coat you decide to use, you want to make sure you stir it really well. I had told you that already when we had the stain, so I'm just stirring it really well. I am going to actually pour it on a paper plate, and that way when I use my blue sponge, I'm just going to dab it and then run it across. It just makes it a lot easier. I don't want to have to put that in there and cross-contaminate. So we're going to pour some on here, set that jar aside. So I'm gonna start from this side and work my way across. I want to stay in one direction, so I'm not wanting to go over this part and then going back over it. You're just gonna wanna go in one direction, and you can come over to the next part and overlap it a little bit if you want, but you don't wanna go forward and back. You wanna just stay in one direction. So we're going to start right here. I'm going to add it into there, and then this little lip is really great for just putting it back on there. And I'm just going to start here and work my way across. And just work my way across. And anytime you need more, you just dip it in. Wipe the excess off. Start from this side and just pull it across. And as you can see, it's going to seal it. You can go back up. If you've got enough, you can go back down. Just go right next to it and go back down. So that is what I'm gonna do on this entire table. Okay, so this next step, I have done the top, and now I'm going to paint the bottom. So this already had paint on it from a few years ago, so I cleaned it really well. I'm going to sand this with a little sandpaper to make sure that I don't have any adhesion problems, because I'm not sure what paint this was, so I cleaned it. I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going to paint over it with Dixie Belle's Midnight Sky. This is like a grayish black color. So we're going to do a grayish black color on this, and then we're going to see how it turns out. So I'm gonna sand and wipe that off with a damp rag, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint. Okay everybody, so this piece is done. I hope you liked it. We had Midnight Sky on the bottom and then Picklin' White on the top. We did some Gator Hide. It's a nice, simple, easy makeover. And so thank you guys so much, and thank you for tuning in to Home Talk. And until next time, my name is Christina, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.